What's up, Guardians, and welcome back, Warlocks. We're back at it today with another new Prismatic build, and this might be one for the books, because it's an absolute monster at dealing out high levels of damage. So if you're struggling with dealing out maximum damage when facing up against some of this game's raid and dungeon bosses, then this will certainly be a build for you to try. It's not just going to be a build for when you're taking on bosses either. This Prismatic Warlock is attuned towards optimal ability uptime, so you'll be able to mow through huge onslaughts of enemies with ease at any level of difficulty. This build features the Apotheosis Veil Exotic Helmet. This exotic comes with the Insatiable intrinsic trait, which grants instant ability regeneration after casting our super. Now you might be wondering why we're not using the Dawn Chorus, or an exotic class item that comes with the spirit of Star Eaters. Well, the Dawn Chorus is much more of a solar-centric build that's contingent upon causing Scorch and creating ignitions. The Spirit of the Star Eaters is a magnificent addition for Warlocks, but it's tied behind an item that has horrible drop rates, and I just don't really feel comfortable pushing players to use exotic class items because of that. But there's also a lot of benefits that the Apotheosis Veil is going to provide for us that those other builds won't. And we start by talking about this Insatiable intrinsic trait. When we cast our super, we'll get instant regeneration of our grenade, melee, and class ability energy. We are using the Song of Flame, which has its own built-in grenades and powered melees, and they're not affected by this. So this means that when our super is over with, we'll already have full grenade and melee energy ready to go. To maximize the efficiency of this bonus ability energy, you'll want to use all of your grenade and melee abilities before casting your super. When we cast our super, we'll also receive full health restoration, and any nearby ally is going to be granted with a 3-stack of cure, providing them with 180 health points. And when our super is over with, we'll gain an 8-second Insatiable buff that provides 66% bonus ability regeneration. During this 8-second window, we'll be able to throw as many as 3 extra grenades and several powered melees. We're using Song of Flame because it's a roaming super that lets us use our abilities and our weapons at the same time. The grenade and melee abilities are going to deal a ton of damage since they'll continuously trigger Scorch and ignitions. And Song of Flame will make it easy to incorporate weapon rotations that feature damage bonuses like Bait and Switch. This also gives any kinetic or solar weapon the added ability of scorching enemies while in our super, making it much more beneficial to include those into our weapon loadouts. While Song of Flame is active, we'll have a bonus of 90% to our damage resistance, which will greatly improve our survivability while we're also dealing out a ton of damage. Once Song of Flame has gone cold, the Insatiable bonus is going to kick in. This is where we'll be able to spam our selected grenade and powered melee. And we are using Storm Grenades and Arcane Needles. Storm Grenades are going to strike enemies with a barrage of lightning, and since we are using the Facet of Dominance fragment, those grenades are going to cause enemies to become jolted. Jolted enemies chain lightning to other nearby enemies, dealing out bonus damage over 8 seconds, and we'll be able to throw between 3 and 4 of these as soon as our Song of Flame super has ended. When we defeat enemies with our Storm Grenades, we will become amplified, increasing our movement speed, our reload speed, and our weapon handling. And because we are using the Galvanic Armor artifact mod, we will also gain a 30% bonus in damage resistance. We've also chosen to go with the Facet of Protection to increase our survivability even more. This is going to give us an extra 15% damage resistance whenever we are surrounded by enemies, and this damage resistance will grow to 32% when we are Transcendent, which is really going to help us out when we're chaining our Transcendence with our Song of Flame, since both are going to provide us with huge bonuses in damage resistance. Arcane Needles are going to cause enemies to become unraveled, which causes them to take additional damage over time. And since we have 3 charges of Arcane Needles, we'll be able to throw between 9 and 12 of these while the Insatiable buff is active. One of the biggest benefits in using Arcane Needles is that we will have a 10% bonus in damage against enemies who are debuffed by a Darkness ability. And this is thanks to the Facet of Courage fragment. So by striking enemies with Arcane Needles, we'll give our Storm Grenades and our Song of Flame bonus damage. One of the key elements to this build is Devour, which is going to be provided by Feed the Void. When we defeat enemies with an ability, we'll gain Devour, and while this is active, every final blow will grant full health restoration and bonus grenade energy. This will be based on the difficulty level of the enemy, providing us with between 8 and 20% extra energy, which is going to give us our storm grenades back lightning fast. This also gives us a continued source of health restoration, and since this build revolves around its ability spamming, you should always have Devour active. Our second prismatic aspect is the Hellion buddy, which is activated after using our class ability, and this gives us a solar turret that continuously launches projectiles at enemies. This autonomous solar buddy is a great option for easy extra damage. Enemies will become scorched by these projectiles, and since this is another light-based ability, it'll deal bonus damage against any enemy who's debuffed by a darkness effect. Devour will give us a lot of grenade energy, but to optimize our ability regeneration even more, we're using Facet of Balance and Facet of Awakening. Facet of Balance will provide 10% bonus melee energy whenever defeating targets with light-based damage, like our Storm Grenades or Hellion buddy. It'll also provide 10% bonus grenade energy whenever defeating enemies with darkness damage, which would include our Arcane Needles, Tangles, and any stasis or strained weapon. Facet of Awakening is going to create elemental pickups for us whenever we defeat enemies with light or darkness based energies. These pickups will match the energy type from the source of damage. So with what we've got set up currently, we'll be able to generate Ionic Traces, Fire Sprites, and Tangles. Ionic Traces grant over 12% bonus energy to our melee, grenade, and class ability, and Fire Sprites provide 10% bonus grenade energy. So between Devour, Ionic Traces, and Fire Sprites, we'll have a near infinite supply of Storm Grenades, Arcane Needles, and Phoenix Dive, which is all going to help us regain our super energy even faster. Weapons that create elemental effects like Incandescent or Jolt will also create these elemental pickups, so keep that in mind when selecting your primary weapons. One of the most important aspects of this build is Transcendency. It gives us another free roam super that lets us spam abilities. We'll have the use of Arcane Needles and a combination grenade that's made of Void and Stasis energy. Dealing weapon damage during Transcendency will extend its duration, which would allow us to throw even more combination grenades and more Arcane Needles. To maximize our damage potential with Apotheosis, Transcendency, and Song of Flame, you'll want to use any charged up Storm Grenades and Arcane Needles before activating Transcendency. Use your abilities and weapons while Transcendency is active, and once Transcendency is ended, use all of your powered abilities and then cast your super. Use all of your super abilities and weapons until Song of Flame is over with, and then spam your charged Storm Grenade and Arcane Needles until the Insatiable buff is gone. And in many situations, you'll find that by the time the Insatiable buff has gone away, your Transcendency buff will be ready again, if not close to it, allowing you to go right back into that Transcendent state for any of those longer damage phases, or to clear out enemies after a damage phase. We mentioned a few artifact mods already, but let's go ahead and dive in deeper to what other mods we're using. To increase our ability uptime, we're using Elemental Siphon and Counter Energy. Counter Energy restores a small amount of energy whenever stunning champions, and Elemental Siphon will restore energy by creating more elemental pickups. Rapidly defeating enemies with kinetic or harmonic weapons will create Fire Sprites, which will give us even more grenade energy. We've got Radiant Orbs, which will give us Radiance whenever we collect orbs. While Radiant, our weapons will deal 25% bonus damage, and they'll be able to pierce barrier shields. We'll be able to have Radiance active whenever we cast Song of Flame, but this will help us maintain that bonus and damage for as long as we're creating orbs. Since Song of Flame and our Hellion buddy have the ability of triggering ignitions, we are using the Solar Fulmination mod, which is going to cause ignitions to trigger twice, dealing double the amount of damage. The Shield Crush mod is going to give us a massive increase in ability regeneration and ability damage. Whenever we have elemental buffs like Woven Mail, Frost Armor, or a Void Overshield, we'll gain a bonus of 25% to our melee damage and our melee regeneration. And when we have Radiance or Amplified, we'll have a 25% increase to our grenade damage and grenade regeneration. We don't really plan on having a Void Overshield, Woven Mail, or Frost Armor active at any point, but we do plan on having Radiance and Amplified, which will significantly improve the performance of our Storm Grenade. This will also add to the amount of damage that we're able to deal out of Transcendency and our Super. We're also running the Transference Artifact mod, which is going to increase the amount of damage that our grenades and melees deal while we are Transcendent. This provides an extra 10% ability damage, and after Transcendency has ended, we'll gain bonus Transcendent energy off of any weapon final blows that we had while Transcendence was active. So between our selections in Class Tree and Artifact, we're going to be stacked with massive ability regeneration and massive ability damage. I mentioned already that Bait and Switch is a great weapon trait to include in your weapon loadouts. Because of our constant use of abilities, auto-reloading and reconstruction would also be great options. But what I find to be the most effective is weapons with Grave Robber or Demolitionist. Between our Transcendency, Apotheosis Veil, and Song of Flame, we have several opportunities to automatically reload our weapons as we're using our abilities. So having weapons that include a combination of these perks is going to allow us to deal maximum damage. The Apex Predator Solar Rocket Launcher is a great option for this, as it drops with Demolitionist and Bait and Switch. It's a solar weapon, which would mean it'll have Scorch added whenever we're in Song of Flame. And since we'll be throwing a ton of grenades before, during, and after our super, we'll be able to fully cash in on that Bait and Switch. The Crowning Duologue Strand Rocket Launcher is another legendary weapon that offers this benefit, as it can drop with either Demolitionist or Grave Robber with Bait and Switch. We're going to end up using more melee charges because of Arcane Needles and our Incinerator Snap, so Grave Robber would actually allow the Crowning Duologue to deal more damage. In a 30-second damage phase against Ferazia, the combination of Crowning Duologue or Apex Predator is able to deal out well over 3 million points of damage. The Wither Horde would be a fantastic exotic option to deal continuous damage, while pairing up very nicely with either of these rocket launchers to be able to easily trigger Bait and Switch. The Dragon's Breath would also be an incredible option, since it automatically reloads itself as enemies are taking Scorch, and it also creates fire sprites. I also like the Microcosm Exotic Trace Rifle with this build. It deals bonus damage after casting your super. It'll apply Scorch while in your super, and since it is a heavy kinetic weapon, you can double down on kinetic surge mods by using this and a kinetic weapon like the Supremacy Sniper, which does come with Bait and Switch. With our Class Tree, Artifact, and preferred weapon loadouts addressed, let's go ahead and shift over and talk about our choice in armor and armor mods. When it comes to the main character stats to focus towards, the main two are Recovery and Resilience. These are crucial towards reducing your incoming damage and improving how quickly your health begins to regenerate. Outside of these stats, I would recommend focusing at least 30 points into your intellect in order to improve the uptime of your super, and focus all the rest towards strength and discipline to reduce the cooldown of your melee and grenade energies. Since the Radiant Orbs mod will give our weapons bonus damage, we are using a Helmet Siphon mod, the Firepower Gloves mod, and a Reaper class item mod to be able to generate orbs. Once we've collected orbs, we'll have armor charges, and with those armor charges, we'll be able to use weapon surge mods on our boots. With the use of 2 mods, we'll have a 17% bonus in damage, and we'll still be able to have the ability of running a Recuperation Boots mod, so that we have an extra source of health restoration. Our abilities already have top-notch regen, but we can add on a little extra by using mods like Momentum Transfer, Outreach, and Ashes to Assets. Ashes to Assets will actually be a really key element towards our ability to have super energy back quickly, since we'll be spamming those storm grenades almost non-stop. And with that, I think we've covered just about everything I can think of on why the Apotheosis Veil is an exotic that you need to start using with those new Prismatic builds. This build has insane ability uptime, with even more insane damage output. So if you're trying to get to the top of the leaderboard when your team takes on dungeon and raid bosses, then look no further than the Apotheosis Veil. But I'd love to hear your thoughts about the Apotheosis Veil, Prismatic Warlocks, and the current state of Destiny, so let me know what you think down in the comments below. If you need help getting this build set up for yourself, then be sure to check out the Mobalytics link that's down in the description, where you'll be able to find a ton of great in-game builds. Thank you as always for checking out the video. If you enjoyed and found it helpful, then be sure to hit that like button below, along with the subscribe button if you're new. Both are greatly appreciated, and both really do help support the channel. If you're a new Light Guardian, just starting your journey, or a battle-hardened veteran, just looking for a new place to call home, then be sure to check out the Discord link that's also down in the description, and join one of the greatest communities in all of Destiny. And until next time, Guardians, this has been Profane, wishing you all some happy hunting.